Well, hey, everybody, welcome back to the show, Conversations with Kenny. I'm Kenny, and joining me on the show today is Erie working man Brenton Davis. He's running for Erie County Executive. And how you doing, Brenton?
Good, Ken. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on the show. I'm humbled to have you here. And, before we jump into it real quick, could you tell the audience out there that may not know you and isn't familiar with you a little bit about yourself and how you got into politics?
So, as you said, I call myself Erie Working Man, and kind of where that came about was years ago. I'm a carpenter. I got calluses on my hands, scuffs on my boots, and I just kind of look at myself as the everyday representative of working people. You know, people that are blue collar, people that work hard, and it's not even necessarily tradespeople. It's just anybody that puts on their boots, puts on their shoes, puts on their loafers, whatever, to go out and make a living, sling it, lay it all on the line for their families. And we're just plain sick and tired of the government dictating every aspect of our lives and expecting us to pay for every pet project that they have. So, I mean, that's kind of 5 years ago when I ran the last time in 2017. That was really a major factor and what led me to wake up and look around and go, is this a world that I can leave the children I one day intend to have, or my grandchildren, or just even my nieces and nephews? Is this a world that I am prepared to leave them? And my answer was no. So, I'm all about the saying, put your money where your mouth is. And, I guess your rear end is included in that. You got to lay it all on the line, and that's what I'm here to do.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And, I've seen some of your pictures, some of the work you do with your business and stuff. And I'll tell you what, man, you guys do a great job. And that's what we need, I feel like, in our local positions are people that, the workforce, the blue collar guys out there that, are putting it on, making this country go, man. And we need people on our side, and that's what I loved about your 2017 campaign, I loved about that. For some new people out there kind of getting more involved in local elections now, because after the big election, the presidential one, I think it's become really clear that we need to be more involved in our local elections. So now that we're, kind of going out there and doing that, what does an Erie County executive do? What does a county executive do? What is that
So,
position?
the quickest way to kind of establish what a county executive does is that Erie County specifically is operated by what's called a home rule charter county. And essentially, that's like our constitution, if you were. Um, so it functions very much similar to like our state or federal government. You have a governor, and then you have a state house and state senate. And they function together to create the laws and ratify the governor's budget. The county executive works very much the same way. The county executive is in charge of producing the budget, and then it goes to council. They look it over, take their little cut, do whatever they want to do, make their changes. And I mean, this process can kind of go back and forth a little bit, but in all intents and purposes, the county executive is the one that essentially can have effects along with council on whether our taxes go up or continue to go up, where our spending is. Ultimately, county council controls the purse string. The county executive is exactly as the word says, the executive of the county. So what that means to John Q. Public is that office controls all the departments and operations that the county is responsible for. The employees, negotiating contracts with the five different unions, controlling the Erie County prison, health department, human services, social services, you name it. The county executive is ultimately responsible for all these operations. So that's kind of the long and short of it. Now, you look at the home rule charter and you see that by the book, this is what the county executive is responsible for. Well, my argument is that that's just simply not good enough. Like for somebody that can go there and say, I'm qualified to do the job, great. You might be a qualified executive, or you might have experience in government, but it's simply not enough in the sense that we need a county executive with vision that's going to operate in what they call a sphere of influence or an area of influence, which means you're not ultimately responsible for, such as economic development, but you can move the meter. It'd be the triad of different things, and we can probably talk about that further. But to me, that's the short of what the county executive does, and kind of where it should be heading as far as responsibilities in the position.
Okay. Right on, man. Well, as far as Erie County goes, what do you think are some issues it's facing right now? And some solutions that we could come up with, to those issues.
I'll tell you. So,
Get down.
I mean, what are some of the issues, man? There's
Right.
so many issues. Um, so really, I think there's three things that we need to focus on, and these are encompassed in my campaign platforms that you can see either on my Erie Working Man page, or you can go to brentondavis.vote. That would be a quick way for your viewers to kind of see what I'm about and what those platforms are. We could sit here and nitpick county government all day long, and I mean, literally, we could probably write an encyclopedia of different issues. So, my goal is to go after, or focus rather, on three areas. One is going to be post pandemic recovery. So, we all
Absolutely.
know that our economy is the worst economy that we've seen in probably our
Absolutely,
great
dude.
great grandparents' lifetimes. You know, the only thing that we can find that even is remotely comparable would be the Great Depression starting in 1929. Um, so, post pandemic recovery through economic development, small business development, and aiding small business startups. I just met today with Perry Wood, the director of ECRA, and I mean, we talked at length about different mechanisms and different things that we can do as a county and the different organizations that we can loop in to make these things happen. Organic business growth is going to be what saved Erie County, and we really need to focus on this. Another thing that included in that is, whether we like it or not, the COVID recovery plan.
Yeah.
Realistically, we've got all this money from the federal government just being shot out into Neverland.
Yeah.
And I mean, we should be absolutely concerned about these things, because once this money's spent, it's no secret that America is in debt.
Right.
I mean, we're robbing from Peter to pay Paul. I mean, this $1.9 trillion plan, we're literally borrowing money from our kids and our grandkids to yet again kick the can down the road like the boomer generations, the generations
It's
before have done.
crazy, man. It's crazy. The printing doesn't stop, and it's just, the answer is, supposed to be, to all our problems, just print money, and I don't agree with that. So, I completely agree with you that about getting the budget back in check, man. That's huge. That's going to be huge for the city, and the
Yeah,
taxpayers.
I mean, there's just so many different things. There's so many different things when it comes down to that,
Right.
you know. But I mean, say we get this shot in the arm, yeah, you're going to see. I mean, if you watch the stock market today, it had a little jump. I mean, my stocks are doing pretty good.
Right.
So thankful for that. Some good buy-ins. I know you and I have had some conversations about that for the last year, just kind of talking about the stock market and things.
And Bitcoin,
Um,
yeah. Yeah.
but I mean, that's
Right.
aside from county government, but
For sure, yeah.
it's that I think that's so important for the county executive position, that somebody that truly understands economics,
Right.
the ebbs and flows of business, and the very most basic principles of economics, physics. There's a reaction, an equal and opposite reaction. And for those that don't know, I'm finishing my master's in economic development. I actually have one credit to go,
I did not
and
know that.
I have my master's in economic development, community and economic development.
Dude, that's awesome, man.
Yeah,
I
it
didn't
has
know
been a
that. That's
long
awesome.
it's been a long road. It was from Penn State. I've been doing that for the last 3 years. Invested a boatload of time and studies, and done a considerable amount of traveling to see some other things. And every time I travel, call me like I don't know, an economic development nerd, but when I go places, most people are like looking at the scenery and oh, look at the sunsets. And I'm like, wow, like look at how this waterfront is developed to create a sense of place. And I wonder what the revenue is here. And like I'm sitting there constantly, my mind is like just whirling about how their government operates, how do they develop it, how do they capture their revenue to do the things that they've done to make that be a viable place to live. um, so yeah, I mean, I think that's important for the county executive. You have to understand the effects you're placing on the economy, the effects and the needs of local businesses. And let's be clear, the county executive should operate again in what I talked about, a sphere of influence. We can't regulate this. We can't, um, I would say, legislate our way into prosperity. Like the government can't just will businesses to be successful. What they can do is create a business friendly environment, remove a lot of these BS regulations,
I
cut
agree.
down the gas taxes. And obviously, these are state issues. But again, a lot of individuals say, well, that's a state issue. That's not my problem. Well, I would look at you and say, BS. That's absolutely your problem, because any issues that affect taxpayers, business owners that create jobs, you need to be able to have an influence in those areas. So how would I influence those areas with the governor? Well, one, you have a working relationship with that governor. You make trips to Harrisburg. You have relationships with your state reps on both sides of the aisles, and you drive these individuals. You create that political pressure to get things done. If you're not going to do the job and you're going to sit here and put up useless bills, I'm going to fundraise and I'm going to put up a candidate and you're going to go away. I mean, that is how we the people have our will be done.
I
Is
agree.
we create the political pressures and we drive these folks out of house and home. And that's realistically, the county executive might not have anything to do with these state issues or federal issues, but realistically, the majority of our problems come from that commonwealth, the state government, the fifth worst place to conduct business in the United States, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We're ranked 45th. I mean, there's only five worst places to be. Like, that's really not a place on the list we want to be.
Right. That's nuts, man. That's absolutely nuts. Um, one of the questions I have for you is, you talked about the decision making and things like that involving the people. How do you plan on doing that? How do you plan on involving residents in decision making process for the city
Well, I mean, the city would
if
be an entity
elected? Yeah. I
all of
mean,
itself. The county and the city need to work together for starters. You know, we all know it's no secret that the city has been driven into a hole, and
right.
Schember has just continued the managed decline to an accelerated decline with poor fiscal planning and decisions. So my argument would be is that the taxpayers do have a decision. We have say every single year, twice a year, in the primary election in May, and then again in the general in November. It's I see a lot of traffic on Facebook and comment sections. Well, the voters should decide. The voters should decide this. You do. Every single election, you have the ability to decide by doing your research, getting involved, helping campaigns that you believe in, and getting behind people that are running for office that you believe will do the job. And if they get elected and they don't do the job, we get them unelected.
Correct. Right.
I mean, it's a job interview, and to have we need to have open dialogue, of course. You need to have direct pathways with your representatives and direct pathways with your constituents. Like, I'll talk to anybody. Sometimes the best idea comes from the most unlikely sources. And that's after 21 years in the military, that's something that I've learned to be true. It's that 18-year-old private that didn't score so well on the ASVAB entrance exam to get in. It might not be the rocket scientist of the battalion, but
Right.
sometimes he has that good idea that a bunch of us officers didn't think about. So, I mean, to me, I think it's about keeping an open mind, communicating inside of the communities and making sure that everybody has an even stake at the table of government. And I mean, I think that's important. We don't work together. I mean, we're all rowing the boat in different directions. Is all we're gonna do is spin in circles.
Dude,
You
I
know,
I completely understand. I completely agree, man. I completely agree. I just feel like it's more important now than ever that we pay attention to, these local elections and who's running for offices, you know what I mean? And if are there any empty seats out there that, people that might be interested in running for office can look into, how would you go about doing that, I guess? I mean, not just for Erie County
so
executive, but
for anybody that's interested in running for office, like, I typically run a little workshop or a little academy of sorts to help new candidates streamline themselves to run for office. And I mean, I just had this conversation, and I have it quite frequently, would be individuals that want to run for office. It's not something that you just wake up one day and say, hey, petitions are coming out this week, and I'm going to go over here and pick them up. I'm going to start filling out my petitions. And you would think that's where the pathway starts. But to me, those folks that generally decide in that manner tend to be cannon fodder because they're not prepared to enter the fray. Like, they don't have the research behind them. They
right.
don't know what the positions do. They don't have the infrastructure. I mean, just and that's not case in point for everyone. I mean, Senator Laughlin woke up one day and said, hey, I'm going to run for state senate. And we all know he's been successful. But he was also a very successful business owner for decades with a lot of ties and hit the ground running. The average person, like for me, I helped Dan Laughlin on his campaign. I kind of watched his infrastructure as a fly on the wall. And I kind of learned over that year. And then coming into the 2017 race, I was more prepared, but I was still not completely prepared. I could have prepared myself better by learning the infrastructures and fundraising and how a campaign is run. And there's just so many things that come into politics
For
that the
sure,
average
man.
person doesn't expect.
For sure.
So realistically, people that think, hey, I want to say, for instance, there might be somebody out there listening thinking, I want to run for county council. Well, now is the time. And what I mean by that is you need to get involved with campaigns early. You need to start attending the county council meetings, watch the Zoom meetings, read the newspaper articles, watch the news.
Gotta be involved.
You have to be involved
Right.
because, like, I can't even tell you how many times people sit there and say to me, like, wow, how do you know all this stuff? This is crazy. Facts, figures, statistics. Well, it's because I've been studying this for 5 years. I mean, a half a decade. I have prepared to interview for a job that will cost me more to get the job than I'll make doing it. So I mean,
Right.
it's funny, but that's the reality. If you're serious, you need to be doing this at least 1 to 2 years out from your election,
Get started
preparing
now.
your way. Start now.
For
If there's
sure, man.
anybody out there, now is the time.
For sure, dude. I'll tell you what, man. I voted for you in 2017. I'm gonna vote for you again, man.
I
And
appreciate it.
do you have any upcoming events, anything that where people can ask you? What's the best way people want to ask you some questions if they have a question?
So the easiest way would be directly at the Erie Working Man Facebook page. That would be the first one. The other one would be info@brentondavis.vote. They can send an email there as well. Um, any of those questions that anybody might have, we're having a campaign meeting this week to kind of determine, where our campaign moves from here. From here, complete rollout to the spring primary. So we'll solidify some of this. Normally, we would have a better plan, but we all know with COVID, we just don't know. We're very limited in what we can
Right.
do. So I'm going to start hosting town halls, question and answer town halls through like Facebook. I'll get online, Facebook Live, um, you know, kind of just give my weekly fireside chat of the day. And
That's awesome.
folks can ask you. And the beautiful part about that is anybody asks you questions, you really can't dodge questions. You know, you might ask a dumb question, and I just might tell you. I mean, I'm a working guy. I'm not going to pull any punches. If you ask me a stupid question, I'm going to tell you it's stupid.
Right.
I mean, I
Yeah.
guess that's the difference of I've had to adjust. Me saying that I'm a politician, it kind of tastes like uh, garbage in my mouth,
Right.
but that's the reality. I mean, I'm a politician. I never thought I would say that, but you know, I've still got that working man attitude and
For sure, dude. You're for the people, man.
straightforward demeanor. I mean, that's what it's
Yep.
about. Like, it's enough tap dancing around. So I think those Facebook Live forums are great. It gives people a chance to dialogue, but then everybody can see the questions that are being asked. So, I mean, if you duck the question, everybody knows it. And obviously sometimes they do come so fast, or if you're working off a different platform, you can't see them. But yeah, I mean, to me, there's really no appropriate question that I'm not at least prepared to answer. And if I don't know the answer, I will
Right.
research it and,
Yeah, because we're all on
do
different
this.
levels as far, what I mean, like
Hmm.
like we said, there's people out there just getting involved now,
Yep.
and like you said, man, there's no such thing. Well, I mean, you know, so, but yeah, dude, that's great. I'm gonna leave those links to your page in the description of the video, and I gotta wrap this up here because I have a cap on the podcast recorder for
There you
this.
go.
So, but man, I really appreciate you coming on the show. I'm super excited, and I'm looking forward to some of those Facebook Live events and Q&A sessions. So,
Heck yeah. Send me a link to this, and I appreciate having me.
absolutely, man, absolutely. Thank you very much. And that concludes the show. This is Conversations with Kenny.